Alright, YouTube, so we are back, of course, to talk about some, I don't know, probably Final Fantasy VII Remake. But before we hop into today's video, I want to quickly thank everybody for the traction to the channel lately. We've gained a couple of hundred subs over the past couple of weeks to a month or so. A lot of the videos lately have been doing pretty well in terms of views, like 1,000, 2,000 something views per video, which is nice to see. I'm not really an analytics guy, but obviously as a YouTuber, as somebody who creates content, you want to see more. You want to see more subs, more views, and I'm very appreciative of that stuff. I don't say it enough. I don't say it often enough. Usually only when there's like major milestones on the channel. But obviously, even though I don't say it as often as I should, I'm very thankful. I try to put content out as often as I can in regards to Remake, try to keep everybody up to date with the information that's out there. Sometimes there's not always something to talk about, which is part of why we do every other day uploads. But again, thank you. So for today's video, we're revisiting an older topic we've talked about a time or two in the past, and it's the Remake project and PS5. And why we're talking about this is because Sony is discontinuing the PS4. Or at least that's what headlines would have you believe. They're not getting rid of the PS4 entirely. There will still be a certain version of the PS4 still being made. But they are getting rid of damn near every version of the PS4, the PS4 Pro, the PS4 Slim. They're keeping just the PS4 like 500 gigabyte version. So before we even get into this topic and how it pertains to Remake, part of why I'm making this video is because people are sharing this stuff and talking about this without acknowledging the fact that the PS4 is not entirely discontinued. People are having the conversation with the assumption that there's going to be no more PS4s. Like the Reddit post I seen last night, part of how I know about this even happening or being a thing. Like you go through all the comments on the Reddit post, it isn't until like the very last comment that somebody mentions the fact that the PS4 is not entirely discontinued. You go over to Audrey on Twitter, who is a fantastic source of information. I use her all the time. It's not until she does a second follow-up tweet where she addresses the fact that the PS4 isn't entirely discontinued. She shared this article seemingly without reading it because she didn't address the fact that there's still going to be PS4s with the initial tweet. And why I bring all this up is because people are having conversations about this, like based on headlines, and without even like reading the articles themselves. Because again, if you did, you would know that the PS4 is still very much being made. It's a certain version that's going to stay, and most versions are being discontinued. But still, the PS4 is not going anywhere. And you should always do research yourself, man. You should never take things at face value. Regardless of whatever I talk about in my videos, whatever I show my videos, I always link to the source in the description. And you should always go check things out for yourself. So how all this comes back to Remake is people were having the conversation of, well, the PS4 is being discontinued. Does that mean that going forward, part 2 and beyond for Remake, is that going to be a PS5 exclusive thing? But now that we know the PS4 is not being discontinued, we almost don't even need to have this conversation, but I suppose we can. I suppose you could have the conversation around the fact that they're very much slowing down on making PS4s and moving on to the PS5, so in a roundabout way, it's still kind of the same conversation. And my stance on this currently is the same thing as it's been in the past, and I'll keep saying this until I'm proven right or wrong. I think the part 2 is going to come out on PS4. I don't know exactly when it's going to come out, and beyond that, if there is a part 3, assuming that there will be, depending on how far away that is, that one could be a PS5 exclusive, because that's presumably, if there is a part 3, going to be like, 5+ years from now or something like that, potentially. It's going to be a while until we get to part 3, if there is a part 3. For the sake of this video, we're just going to be talking about part 2, since that's the next game that's going to come out. That's going to hit sometime within the next couple of years, right? Assuming development goes great. By then, the PS5 will sell, I don't know how many copies. As of right now, it's only sold about like a little over 4 million or something like that. Comparatively to, the PS4, which has sold over 100 million units, dude. It'd be stupid of Sony to not release every Remake game on the PS4 and then also on the PS5. Like there's an audience of 100+ million PS4 players. Like, why would you not sell games on that console still? I've seen people say that they want, the sequels to be a PS5 exclusive for technological reasons so the game can be better, and I get that and I understand that, but people are talking like the PS4 is the goddamn original Nintendo or something, or like the PS4 is like the PlayStation 1 or something. Do you forget like games like Horizon Zero Dawn exist? Like you can make a massive open world, overworld, whatever it might be for, part 2. Like it's not like the PlayStation 4 is incapable of making fantastic games. I don't know where this conversation comes from. I've also seen people use like Cyberpunk as an example of last gen versus current gen and things like that, but that's a completely different scenario. They weren't done developing it for last gen. It was pushed out by investors. It had been delayed so many times, and investors wanted them to put it out by a certain date, and their hands were kind of tied. Yes, they were deceptive with their marketing and things like that. That's a completely different topic, but again, that's a different scenario. Plus, like Cyberpunk is a very ambitious game, whereas, Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 isn't going to be trying to push all these boundaries in terms of game making and RPG and open world aesthetic and all this other bullshit. Like, they're very different games in very different scenarios. They don't even compare to each other. Now, to hop back to what we were talking about before, because I sort of went off on a tangent there, I'm not completely writing off that Part 2 could be a PS5 exclusive. Yeah, that could absolutely happen. I don't think it will because they've already, announced years ago, right? That, FF7 Remake was going to be a multi-game series. They sold us Part 1 on the PlayStation 4, right? For them to make Part 2 a PS5 exclusive would be a several $100 investment for literally every single player that wants to buy that game. There's already a lot of people that are kind of on the fence about the remake project. A lot of people didn't even buy Part 1. A lot of people that played Part 1 are kind of skeptical of what they're doing in the story. And then for you to ask of them, hey, we need you to buy this game brand new for $60 or $70, whatever the PS5 games were sold for. But also you got to buy a brand new console entirely to play it. I just don't see a lot of people returning for Part 2. They'd be losing a lot of money. I've said it in the past, I'll say it again, I'll say it every time we have this conversation. It makes the most sense from every single angle for them to drop all the remake games on PS4 and then also re-release them on PS5 a little bit prettier and make, twice the money essentially, or whatever the case. Now, those are my thoughts and opinions mostly out of the way. It is very interesting and intriguing that they're slowing down production immensely of the PS4. Yes, they're moving on to the PS5. That's not really a surprise. That was eventually going to happen anyways. But that does not mean that they won't be supporting PS4. We've talked about this in the past. We'll talk about it again here. Older gen consoles are supported for several years after the next gen comes out. Specifically when it pertains to Square Enix, like with Dragon Quest Heroes, for example, that game came out on PS3 like 2016 to 2017. That was a couple of years into the PS4's life cycle. Square Enix themselves specifically were still supporting the PlayStation 3. So I don't foresee Square Enix giving up on the PlayStation 4 with at least Part 2. Again, these are just my thoughts and opinion. But when it comes to Part 2, I don't see them missing out on that massive, absolutely goddamn massive PlayStation 4 audience. Maybe with Part 3. But of course, those are just my thoughts on the subject. I want to pass off to you guys in the comments section. What are your thoughts? With Sony discontinuing most of the PS4, they'll still be making some of them. You can still go to the store and buy a PS4. How do you think this will affect the remake project? Do you think this is a bit of confirmation that Part 2 and beyond will be PS5 exclusive? Or do you think the games will still be coming out on last-gen consoles? Either way, leave your thoughts more in the comment section below. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. We'll stay updated with more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Turn on my notifications. Follow me on Twitter at dashingdavidyt. I'm a Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description. Into the outro. Later, guys.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Logain, or leave it like Cobain.